Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the channel and the new video. Continuing our discussion on self-validation. Self-validation provides the space, the stage per se, for the authentic self to figure out what to do with the emotional message. The message is a message. The emotion is there to teach you a message. And then upon learning the message, we then need to choose to respond. And we're always given two choices. The higher self or the lower self. Because everything in this universe is based off of concepts of duality. Night and day, light and dark, sun and moon, man and woman, like, you know what I'm saying? Just like the whole concept, there's a dual, it's dual. So that means though, and that's why we have the gift of free will and no other species has that, because we have the recognition of the dualistic thing, the dualistic reality. We can even, we can conceptualize it. A squirrel can't, chipmunk, like they're not thinking like that. So, and that's why, if you are religious at all, the Bible mentions like people are like, we were put here to take care of the nature because we do see the light and dark, the day and night, the ebbs and flows, we are aware, and because of that awareness, we have the gift of free will. But is free will really free if when you choose the lower self, it imprisons you in a cyclical pattern of suffering? So like, yeah, you've got free will. Totally. But like pick the right one. And that's, I think, why a lot of people get mad at religion, because they're like, well, you shouldn't punish me. No, it's not. It's nobody's punishing you. What you're doing is you're forgetting about the law of attraction. It's called a law for a reason. It's a law. It's an embedded fact or whatever, truth. It's embedded truth. And when you choose the lower self, you become imprisoned in hell on earth. No matter how small the infraction is, it doesn't matter. You embody the lower self, hell on earth. So, yeah, that's your choice. And no one's mad at you. It's just, that's your choice. And according to Christianity, God doesn't want you to suffer. So yes, that's why it's like the father. Because what father wants to watch their children? What healthy father? We're not talking about unhealthy fathers. But what healthy father wants to watch their child suffer? And it's that concept that opened my mind to the fact that no one's mad. It's the unconditional love of the universe that will literally rain blessings upon you if you choose the higher self. Because law of attraction. And people get these two things confused, and like they'll believe in the law of attraction but say go F to the Bible, and like whatever, man, but like do your research. It's the same thing. It's what it's trying. Basically, what this religion is trying to get you to do is ascend. You can't ascend when you're tethered. You can't ascend when you have heaviness, aka low vibrational frequencies, tethering you to hell on earth, the addiction to human suffering. So you're not being cursed, punished, or anything. you made the choice to listen to the parasite, embody the parasitic emotion, and retaliate to your environment. Now your environment is responding to the creator of said environment, and it's saying, oh, I guess I gotta reprogram now because the creator actually wants this frequency, not this one. So now your reality is becoming shaped to mimic the internal, the vibrational frequency you chose. Yes. Without that awareness, without emotional regulation, without education on these things, we don't know. We accept it, the embodiment of emotions, and just retaliating against our environment because we were taught at some point that's how life is. It's hard. It's hard, and you got no choice in that, which is crazy to me because I'm pretty sure we're the only species that has a choice. So why do we keep teaching that and overlooking teaching these skills? Because these skills make you powerful. And when you're powerful as an individual, it's scary to the mass. So, right. Embodiment of emotion is basically hell on earth. Of the lower self emotions. So, going back to self-validation and how this provides space. So what's happening is you're receiving a message from the environment. The message produces an emotion because that's how we as human beings are able to understand subtle energy, is it's translated into emotion. So the emotion is a message. It's not who you are. It also doesn't mean that's how you're supposed to react either. In fight or flight, sure. Because if you're in actual fight or flight mode, you embody these messages, it shuts down the communication highway between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex being your wisdom. All of your gained and stored experiences that if you keep that amygdala calm, you'd be able to compare and contrast the current situation with all of your wisdom. Now, if you're getting attacked by a tiger, we don't really need to go into the recesses of our wisdom to solve the problem. To solve the problem is cut off the wisdom, pump the body full of adrenaline and endorphins and whatever bodily chemical it needs to run or to fight, right? So we don't have that happening as much, especially not in our American society. I'm not getting attacked by tigers. I'm not getting stalked by animals. I don't have to worry about wolves coming in my house or a bear. But yet we still have this instinct. It's very innate functioning. And it's being translated now into our current modern society as threats from interpersonal relationships. It has gone from being attacked by the wild, and we've created our own attackers within our humanity, right? Which has always been a thing, like humans have, but whatever. So we still have this innate functioning. However, we have to recognize the evolution of our species. And that knowing that about ourselves, that we don't really need that fight or flight for everything that triggers an unfavorable emotion. And we have to train our modern day brains to accept that. To accept that as a truth. Not as a an option, but as a truth. Fight or flight is meant for life or death. Also, which can be translated in abusive situations, you know. Another thing that triggers fight or flight? Getting yelled at. Because our nervous systems don't have eyeballs. Well, we have eyeballs. And it's up to our discernment from our experiences to differentiate whether or not we're actually in a life or death situation, but yet our nervous system is going to react as such. So, how do we hack the system? Because we're in the process of evolving still, right? So we can't accept that this model of human is got all the kinks worked out. It never will. That's the point. So, caveman, fight or flight all day. That's why it took some time to start figuring shit out. Because once they built shelter and figured out whatever, they start making tools. Now they can defend themselves about the animals with the claws and the teeth. Then the safety of tools and shelter, caves and whatever, and then eventual fire, that created the space for the ancient man to utilize this. To access the knowledge. Because you're not constantly in. And once that space is given, ancient man produced more. The wheel, you know what I mean? I don't know the evolution of inventions, but you get my drift. So, meaning we were originally just fight or flight. Then we fought enough to defend ourselves proactively, creating a space of safety and control almost in order to utilize and unlock other aspects of the human brain. Now, take all that, what I just said, and we're moving over here to self-validation. Self-validation is like the cave, the tool, and the fire. It creates the safe space for you to utilize this to come up with a proactive plan or a proactive solution to the environmental stressors or the challenges or the emotional messages you're receiving from your environment. So, all we're doing is continuing the evolution that started with the ancient man. And our ancestors fought really effing hard for us to keep unlocking these parts of our brain, to keep unlocking and understanding ourselves and inventing and creating and all this cool stuff, right? But you cannot do that without the safe space. You just can't. I'm even not even just ancient man, even in this modern day era. If you're in an unsafe environment, you're not doing a lot of creating in general. You're constantly fighting for your life. You're not sitting down there with hot glue gun and moss, Which is funny because that saying that out loud made me realize there was a point I did that, but that was because I was so far into it. It was can't do much about the environment right now, but what I can control is hot gluing this moss onto this random thing that I'm making, But that's also just survival. I'm not busting down any new, So, self-validation provides the safe space for your nervous system, for your emotional body, which is still going to react in ancient man ways at times because we're still evolving. And what happens, I have visuals. I forgot to get them out before I started recording, and I apologize for that. Here we go. Perfect. This is your limbic system. This is your amygdala. That little guy. The amygdala will then send the message. Where's the prefrontal cortex? I'm looking at all this backwards. It's really hard. But whatever. Wherever that might be another visual. But the limbic system. All right. I'll just read my notes. Limbic system is a group of interconnected brain structures that help regulate your emotions and behavior. The structures of the limbic system work together with other brain regions by processing your memory, thoughts, and motivations, and then tell your body how to respond. Right. That's what it does. That's its natural processing. Now, if the amygdala picks up fight or flight as its vibe, like what it's feeling from this external environmental stressor, what it will do, here we go. What it'll do, this side, is shut down. What happens is the information when you're in a more in a safe space environment, that amygdala stressor will send the it will send out a brain chemical to prefrontal cortex right here. Your prefrontal cortex is what holds all those memories. Now, when you trigger it into fight or flight, you shut down the chemical. It doesn't travel to the prefrontal cortex to check in with the prefrontal cortex and be like, hey, bro, do you have any, like, advice or wisdom on this situation before I, just fly off the rails or whatever? So, if we're constantly feeling, okay, so fight or flight ruins that, right? It ruins the powwow between you and all of your wisdom. Where you can then like take notes and come up with like a super educated and like self-educated response, right? It's like, okay, this is how I'm going to respond. Now, when you trigger that with the fight or flight, you're cutting that down, you're cutting off that information altogether, and you're not responding from a place of structured wisdom or logic or explanation, nothing. You are just thrashing to stay alive or running away. I kind of where I was going with this. Tangent, the diagrams tangented me a little bit. Let me just put that down. So we have this knowledge now. We dissect brains. We got science. Like, we're doing stuff, right? So we cannot pretend like we don't know this. Like, we do now. Like, we know this is on the internet. Like, you can research this stuff. So what we need to do is be aware of this. And how do we, there's self-soothing techniques. Like, we could discuss how to handle these things in a state of trauma in a minute. But I'm just kind of going from like, just, because that's hard. Because fight or flight rules for a while. Actually, no, this could be utilized for trauma too. Because it's the same thing. Because you'll have a overactive fight or flight response. But this technique I'm about to talk about is going to help that as well. And that's why I even started doing this, was because of in trauma recovery, CPTSD recovery, is really hard for me to decipher in the beginning what is fight or flight worthy. It's very hard because somebody moving at me too fast is a fight or flight trigger for me. Somebody coming up behind me too quick, not even too quickly, just behind me in general. Someone coming into my room when I'm not expecting it. There's a slew of them. And I have to differentiate, even though my body starts to move into fight or flight, I have to then move into this technique. Ready? Self-validation. Hey, I know that was scary. I know that was scary for you, but you're in a safe place now. You're not where you used to be. You're protected and you're safe. And then that right there alone starts to calm down the overactivity in my amygdala. So now I'm reaching a space of calm. And then I could say, like, I understand you are very valid for feeling scared like that because of, and then I let myself go to that traumatic memory. I allow it because this is also going to help heal you. So I let myself go to this traumatic memory, and I then validate the suppressed emotion I had then. And I'm saying, like, yes, that was wrong. You didn't deserve that. All of the good things. And then the next step then is the response. Now that's like what I'll use for trauma triggers, because that's a lot of times. But then you can use this also just for interpersonal connection and response in that way. Because not everyone is trying to hurt you. I know it can seem like that sometimes, especially after horrible experiences. However, though, a lot of people are just naive to knowing how to treat you, and that's another reason why we self-validate. It teaches other people how to validate you, because once you validate yourself, you emit an energy that is that of I'm valid, and it creates an echo effect of validation from others as well. So you're creating the space to then respond to the situation. Self-validation. Sorry, the speaker went off, really threw me. And this is self-mastery, by the way, because anytime you take a look at the unseen aspects of who you are and like learn this stuff, you're mastering self, which in turn helps the entire species evolve. So, because like the ancient man had to figure out, if I'm getting attacked every day, I'm getting bitten by saber-toothed tigers all the time, I got to build a shelter. Right. Cause and effect. So, safe space. And that self-validation is a safe space. So now we're going to look at it in a term of interpersonal connections. So somebody says something to you, and you feel that fight or flight coming on. Me, mostly the fight. I'm not proud of it. It sucks. And my immediate reaction would be like, who the do you think you're talking to? I don't want to do that anymore. It's not freaking helpful. So instead, I tell myself, they don't know who they're talking to. Because that's 100% of the time, people are forgetting your values, your worth, and your morals and your ethics. And because we get wrapped up in our own story, our own narrative. So it is up to us to help our fellow man also evolve in the way of, let's not fight. And also, let's not run away. Let's take this as an opportunity to tell myself, yeah, we didn't really like that girlfriend. Why didn't we like it? Because you don't deserve to be spoken to in that manner. Because of who you are. Like, this is what I do. And it's like, you don't deserve that. So it's like, okay, I don't deserve that, but what do I do to self-preservate or to protect my energy or to, in this current moment? And as I'm doing that conversation in my head, what you're doing is you're calming down the overreaction of the amygdala, your limbic system, and you're grounding yourself. You're grounding yourself through validation. You're like, you're right. You're allowed to you're allowed to feel upset. That doesn't mean you're supposed to get upset, because this is a learning lesson here. I'm not fighting a tiger. We gotta stop looking at everything like it's a freaking tiger fight. And we need to say, oh, hey, I think, I understand that you might be feeling stressed or maybe you're a little overwhelmed. I'm not really sure. And I'd love to talk to you about that if you'd like. However, I'm just really, I'm not really digging the tone in which, you're expressing yourself to me right now. And if they're, what tone? I don't know what you're talking about. So calm down. You tell yourself, they don't notice the tone. And you and yourself go, okay, that's funny, but I noticed the tone. And it's like, yeah, girl, and you don't deserve the tone. I know. So you don't need to force others to validate you. I know. I'm validating. You don't deserve the tone. So you could try again. The manner in which you are speaking to me feels harsh to me. It feels full of anger. It feels full of resentment. And I'm unsure if that's your true intention or not. But that is the energy that I am currently feeling having this conversation with you. And it's putting me in a very unsafe feeling space. Now, at this point, there should be a breakthrough. If there's not, you leave. You just leave. We don't argue until people treat us correctly. When you do that, what you're doing is trying to validate yourself through another person's narrative. That's unfair. Because what if in their movie, in their script, you're the villain? In your movie, you're not the villain. So you don't understand. So you're going to try and drag them by the hair out of their movie theater, bring them into your movie theater and say, look at my life from my perspective and see that I'm not an asshole. But you just drug me by the hair out of the movie theater of my life to prove to me that you're not an asshole. And this is why we have a perpetual cycle of interpersonal chaos, interpersonal connection chaos. Because we get offended that someone wrote a different script in their movie. You don't know what their life has been like. If you're the villain in their story, and let's say that's what that open communication opens up, is them telling you, I actually don't even like you. Didn't really think about it before, but now that I'm thinking about it, you're kind of a dick. And you know what? Fine. If that's how it is in your story and in your narrative, you are allowed to have that experience. Now, am I going to stay around and let you punish me for your narrative? No. Because your narrative may have a filtered lens of trauma, maybe someone you met before me, that hurt you, I remind you of them. I don't know what happened to you. Maybe you're traumatized by somebody with brown hair. And they don't know they've been traumatized by someone with brown hair. It's a suppressed memory. And now I'm triggering them. And why do we think that we're going to assist in evolutionary growth of the species if I don't just accept their story? I don't have to embody it. No, I'm not an asshole. But if that's how it is in your story right now, you got two options. Back to the duality of everything. Now that person has two options. They can either communicate with me, and then we can, as we're communicating, get to the root. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize you were just reminding me of blah, 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 and I'm so sorry. I didn't even Or you can solidify that I'm the villain. There's only two. And if we start the process and pointing out, hey, I don't know, just the way your tone of voice right now is giving me feelings of unsafety. And then if the response is, yeah, because you deserve it, because you're unsafe to me, either I have to take accountability and change my ways and apologize. Or if that's not what's actually the case and it's them reading the situation wrong, I still have to accept it. Right? It's their movie. So validate yourself so that you don't drag them into your, look at me, accept me for who I actually am and not the character that you've imagined in your mind. But why do you care so much? Why do you care so much? The character that they've written for you. It's not you. It's not your life. It doesn't matter. So tell yourself that. Like, this person may be really traumatized from an unknown past event that I'm not privy to. So just move on. My self-worth does not hang in the balance of other people's imagination. And I think that's where we go wrong with a lot of our interpersonal relationships. I don't need to prove to you anything. We just need to communicate. And we can't get into a space of communication if I'm constantly trying to use external situations, external environments, and external people to validate my existence. Right? They don't see your movie the way you do. Don Ruiz Miguel Jr. and Don Miguel Ruiz, the authors of the 4 Agreements, 5 Agreements. I'm like looking at the books. I need to cheat. But like that whole set, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of these authors, but he said it the best in, I think it was the 5th Agreement. I don't know, I read so many of their books that they all kind of just go together. But in one of the books, he had mentioned that when it's your life, it's like you're sitting in the movie theater watching it how you're doing right now. But then you have to leave your movie theater to go into your mom's movie theater of how your mom sees your life. And then when you enter that movie theater, you're no longer sitting in front, like, or on your own or whatever. You're now sitting behind the people watching your life through their eyes. So now you have to accept that there's a lens and a filter here. That what you are seeing is now being translated and transmuted, and the perspective is being shifted because there's another person in the movie theater watching. It's not from your point of view anymore. And we have to accept that people are going to watch this movie differently based off who they are as people and their depth of understanding of themselves. And even though the movie looks kind of the same, it's completely different. And that, upon reading that, I was like, so it doesn't matter. No matter what I do, what I say, the person is still going to view the movie from their perspective. So, what can you do? The only thing you can do, self-validate, provide the stage for then you to be able to choose. Are you going to get offended or not? Are you going to recognize that people are going to see you like they see you or not? You're going to fight the world. Well, you're always given these two options. And the self-validation gives you that minute space that you need to allow your authentic self to enter the chat. Because your authentic self would say, it don't matter. It don't matter. It don't matter. You can only go so far with explaining yourself to people. But when people are committed to misunderstanding you, you get them out. You see what I'm saying? But you cannot drag people into your movie theater and be like, watch my life from my point of view, and then you would not speak to me passive aggressively anymore. If you just saw my life and all the pain and suffering I've been through, then maybe you'd watch your effing tone. Because that's kind of like, that's what I want to say sometimes, right? But how unfair is that? So what, now everyone has to know my freaking lore and then walk on eggshells around me? No. I'm allowed to provide myself the self-validating space to say, I don't deserve this shit, and then decide how I want to respond. And yes, I'm going to choose the higher self and the higher self emotions no matter what. Because I don't care what you think. What I care about is the law of attraction and what will happen to my life if I embody my reaction of anger and drag you into my movie theater. That's not the person that I want to be. However, we will always be presented with both choices. Devil, God. Lower self, higher self. Lower road, higher road. Running with the devil, like, okay, I thought that was just funny. Running with the devil. Van Halen. All right. Night and day, light and dark. You see what I'm saying? We're always given the two. There's only two. There's not like an array. There's just two. You either respond from your higher self, prefrontal cortex, or you embody the emotion which validates fight or flight, and then you're beating the crap out of somebody. Do you see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? The lower embodiment of emotion is then what will attract more lower vibrational frequency. And it takes way longer to get back up here. So why not learn from our ancestors, create the safe space, and make a logical response? Because we're working with unseen laws of attraction here, guys. And I want us all to stop perpetuating this cycle with our fellow man because it's hindering our evolution as an entirety. That needed a period, but yeah. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be pissed off and angry. What you're not allowed to do is throw away years of self-mastery training to teach somebody a lesson who doesn't actually matter in the creation of your reality anyway. That's what blows my mind. Like, does this person feed you? Does this person put a roof over your head? Does this person do anything? I'm not saying that the grief isn't gonna be there. The grief will be there when you're hurt like that. But that's still not an excuse to throw self-mastery out the window, swoop down to the lower vibrational frequencies you've been working your ass off to transmute, all for the sake of what? Because you're offended that you're not validated? Validate yourself. Embodying emotion only validates the fact that you should be feeling out of control. Does anyone like that? Yeah, nothing's in our control except for how we respond to shit. So the embodiment of emotion is a parasitic way of validating that I deserve to be flying off the rails. Higher self-validation comes that self-soothing, that grace, that compassion, that agreement. Yeah, you're right, girl. That's pretty fucked up. Like, we shouldn't allow that. And then it's like, okay, but how can we navigate this in a way that supports me entirely? vibrationally, energetically, emotionally, mentally, logically. And then I have a little convo. We have a little convo. And then you come up with a proactive plan. So you are validating yourself either way, but the embodiment of that negative vibration is just validating the fact that you're completely out of control of your self-mastery. You're completely out of control of your own functioning. And like, if this is a system which was designed to suit a pretty rudimentary lifestyle, and it's become evolved to this extent, it is our responsibility to learn how to drive it. It is. We have to get licenses to drive cars, right? Because if you drive a car without a license, you have the potential to kill someone, right? It's the same freaking thing. It's the same thing. So we need to learn how to operate these vehicles. We're not just... I don't understand what that is. What you just... I can't help myself. What do you mean? And you're proud of that? What do you mean? What? And I used to not think like that. I sat in victimhood for a really long time. So when I started like really messing my life up and treating people like shit and drinking and doing drugs and scaring people all the time, because people were being traumatic to me, I was like, fine, I'll just become my abuser. My life got worse. It doesn't get better. You fighting for yourself through fight or flight doesn't evolve you. You stay. Circle, 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 circle. So... And I used to say, I can't help myself. I had a rough childhood. I can't help myself. I'm hurt inside, so I just do things. Like, now, as an adult, I could say, I was hurt inside. I had no emotional regulation training. I had no sensitivity to myself or compassion to myself. I didn't build a lifestyle that supported the pain that I had. I wanted to escape the pain instead of facing the pain, because when you face the pain... You get out the freaking bandages. You get out the gauze. You get out the antiseptic. If you run from the pain, you're not creating a comfy, safe space for yourself. You're not getting the medical kit because you're trying to not accept the fact that you need the medical kit. And that leads into more and more shit that's going to hurt you. I forgot where I got to that point, but... Yeah, so I did it both ways. I've made both decisions within this lifetime. I've chosen the lower self. I chose it for like 10 years in a row, 12 years in a row, maybe like 10 or 9 years in a row. Every choice that I made was a reactionary one based off of that external need for validation. And I embodied every emotion I felt. And I really felt at the time that people deserved my reaction because they shouldn't have made me react that way. But now, knowing what I know, what if they were just wearing a striped shirt that day and I thought they were a tiger? That's on me. And now, in my healing era, recognizing that is blowing my mind. Because how many people did I defend myself, like, because of my abusers? And then at what point during the abusers and the non-abusers did I just treat everyone like an abuser? And I didn't recognize it as much until I got into my current relationship. Because I felt threatened by him every single day. Maybe not threat in this kind of way. Not like he's going to beat me. He's a great guy. That's the thing. This was the most... I have never met a man like this before. He doesn't have ill intention in his heart for anything. He was just born that way. I feel like he doesn't even have to make the two choices. He's just... And I... Getting like teary-eyed thinking about that. Like, I respect that in my partner. But I didn't trust that. Because I didn't know people like that existed from my experience. So when he would give me that look, boom, fight or flight. What the fuck? Immediately. And I would be screaming at this man. Screaming at him. And it wasn't until like a good year into our relationship that I started like trying to a different way to communicate myself. And he then was able to feel safe enough to then open up to me and be like, I wasn't thinking what you thought. And I was like, but what do you mean? How could you not have been thinking what I thought? You made that face. And he goes, that's not what that meant for me. That I was worried. I was concerned. I was like, I thought you were mocking me. I thought you were antagonizing me. I thought you were trying to bait me into an argument. He was like, oh my God, I never want that. And like finally over time we like admitted these things, like, it was then that I was like, have I really just been abused by men for that long? That I really didn't know that he wasn't a tiger? I didn't even realize that I was the one putting the striped shirt on him. He didn't even put it on. I put it on with my narrative in my freaking movie. How unfair is that? And then I'm going to put it on the shirt, triggered myself with him, then I'm going to drag him to validation mode to validate me. Look at my life. Look at my movie. Validate me. That's aggressive as shit. That's an abuser. That's the victim that became an abuser. I like this way of being way better. The self-validation and creating the safe space. Because then I feel safe, man. Then I feel safe enough to use my freaking logic and go, you know what? Maybe I'm just putting a striped shirt on him. He's not a tiger. It's like I get mad when I do these videos sometimes. And it's like, and who am I getting mad at, right? Because it's like, I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know the potential viewer, right? I'm not visualizing anyone. It's me. It's me that I get mad at. Because I've lived both lives. I've lived lower self, and now I'm currently practicing living higher self. It's a constant thing you gotta always do. It is. And maybe one day it won't be like that for me, and that's awesome, because I do feel it. The farther it gets away from over here, the more this becomes the natural response, and I don't need as much time in that safe space of that self-validation. Still self-validate, but I don't need as much time in there to be like, let's decipher. And so I feel like, yeah, one day I'll just be at a point where it's just like, wow, it's all integrated. And that's amazing. And I'm so excited for that. But that's why I'm like so hype to not mess it up again. To not disvalidate myself by embodying emotions that I don't even think I might not know are the right emotions for the moment because of my trauma filter. And you don't even need to have horrible trauma to also still have a filter like that, just because it's how you perceive the world or how you would treat somebody. And then we have that filter on. It's not always from trauma, traumatic events, or people. It's just how we see the world. So we assume. So self-validation is so important for that, so that we can take that space and utilize that prefrontal cortex and choose. It's like how we evolve too. Because we've evolved to the point, first it was just safe space away from like danger, like ancient man. And now it's internal safe spaces. It's emotional safe spaces. It's not we still also need shelter and things like that, but we're not all in the woods struggling like that. We're mostly in houses, apartments, some kind of a building, or the majority of, there's some unfortunate stories and that's sad, and I'm sure that they still have to deal with things like bear attacks and wolves and coyotes, people who live out on the land because they don't have any other way to live and they don't have any home. And so those people, they are still struggling with those things, with creating a safe space just to live. And that's why it's so hard for them to expand and grow and maybe get a job or create something because they're not given the tangible safe space. And like that's like our ancient man. And we have to recognize that privilege of having a roof over our head. Like we're safe from the elements. We're safe from the coyote attacks. And we're given that, and that's why we're even able to have these interpersonal connections and even have challenges, because we're not struggling with those basic challenges. We're not struggling with them. So we're able to then have more challenges, which are more fine-tuned challenges, like healthy relationships. So now we have to create another safe space, the internal safe space of the mind and of the heart and of the self-validation. I just think that's really cool. We're not ever done evolving. We built the spears, we got the wheel, we figured out fire, we got caves. That was just step one, right? And we're at step like trillionth. A trillionth step is going in. We got out here. We figured this out. Now we got to go in here so we can create out here. Like, yes, if I bash something hard enough against the thing, it's going to break. But I'd rather find the tool for that. Learn the evolutionized. Is that a word? It's like a weaponized. It's like evolution turned weaponized. Evolutionized. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Evolution is a weapon when you think about it for all the people who don't want to evolve. So, careful, evolve, do your thing, self-mastery. Because then you can, set intentions and, pray for stuff, and, it happens. Because you're in tune with that vibrational frequency. Those higher blessings, the joy, the bliss, the love, higher vibrational frequencies, that's the gift you receive by putting your personal radio station in tune with it. Like if you're in between radio stations, it's like it's not coming through clear. You have to make a decision of what station to put on, what to tune into to receive that satellite or whatever. I don't know how radio works, but to receive that radio station. So what radio station do you want? Get in the vibrational frequency of it, self-validate today so you don't embody lower vibration tomorrow. Because it's not about getting other people to validate and agree about who you are as a person. That's like a plus. But that's not the point to living life. The point is mastering self to create the reality you deserve. Mastering self to also attract blessings. Mastering self to then evolve the species, All right, I'm going to ramble because I feel it. I feel it in me. Feel the rambling. So we're going to end it. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.